Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Tuesday. Brian Kamenetsky and Andy Kamenetsky. Andy, there's a new person who thinks the Lakers should consider giving up draft picks for Myles Turner. It's Myles Turner. That's next on Locked On Lakers.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. It's never going to be behind a paywall and always free for you. Not our employers, but for you. Make another Locked On podcast your second listen of every day. Make sure you're checking out the YouTube page, which is zooming towards 9,000 subscribers, which we really appreciate. Thank you for all the support everybody's giving that channel and the chat board that's there and all that stuff. So it's really exciting to see how fast that is growing. I want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. And speaking, Andy, of people who are potentially interested in changing jobs or at the very least employers, Myles Turner, center for the Indiana Pacers, gave a very provocative interview to Adrian Wojnarowski at ESPN, where he was asked right out of the chute if he thinks the Lakers should consider giving those picks for him and Buddy Hield. Talked about whether he'd be interested in playing for the Lakers, what it would mean to play for LeBron. And it certainly didn't sound like he was against the idea, Andy.
No, and while I'm sure that Woj gave Myles Turner a heads up that, hey, I'm going to be asking you a question that could very well get your team fined, it certainly is tampering adjacent, if not straight up.
It's not tampering if Turner answers a question. It's tampering if somebody else answers a question.
It gets into a weird area before we get to Turner's actual answer. It's flirting with asking for a trade. It's not quite there, but it gets into I'll say if nothing else, it's tampering adjacent in the sense that you're kind of asking a question that would be considered tampering on behalf of the Lakers, if not, explicitly at their behest. And it's the type of question that I guarantee will piss off the Pacers, who, by the way, are always the team ratting out everybody else for tampering.
Oh, yeah, no. Separate question as to whether or not the Pacers like the answer to the question. But
I'm just saying,
the tampering thing is interesting.
Here's the thing. If it's not tampering, it's second cousin of tampering through marriage. We can agree on that, yes?
It's what the Pacers would call not cool, man.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, Turner responded with, quote, "That's such an intriguing question. I think personally, when you look at the business of this league and knowing the landscape of this league, you have to go off your future, right? We all know picks are so valuable in this league. And someone like myself, I'm heading into the last year of my deal, and you want to make sure you're getting your return for your assets, right? So if I'm the Lakers, I take a very hard look at this with the position that you're in. I know what I provide to a team, my leadership, my shot blocking, my three-point ability, and just my ability to make plays out on the floor. I take a very long look at that. But as far as pulling the trigger, I get paid to shoot, not to make those calls, so I couldn't answer that."
We're both trying to hit the same button at the same time. All right. So,
well, although it is interesting too, like it's messaging to both the Pacers in terms of what they could lose if Myles Turner, who over the course of this interview said a few times, I like Indiana. I have attachments to Indiana. This is where I grew up as a player. But I have a lot of communication with the front office in Indiana. And in so many words said, yeah, they're letting me know we're taking offers. We're considering this. Like,
yeah, that's the thing about it.
We're not blindsiding him.
He talks about it as a business, like very clearly. This is the business. This is a business. This is the business. And, if the Pacers aren't, and it's not like Indiana has never projected the idea that they might not want to invest fully in Myles Turner, who is not old. He actually fits very well into the Lakers timeline in terms of matching with AD and whatever. But for Indiana, who is building around Halliburton and Benedict Mathurin, who is just destroying things so far this year. He's been phenomenal. They are really skewing young. Duarte, well, I guess is like a
He's an old rookie,
second-year player, but younger-ish at the very least, and may not want to make that investment in Turner. That's not exactly an open secret, and it's not even really personal in any way against Turner.
Turner's been on the block for like 3 years,
right?
But I just thought it was interesting too, like him laying out the idea of, if you're the Pacers, heading them last year, you want to make sure you get return on your assets. In this particular case, the asset being myself, but also the idea of getting return for your assets. If you're the Lakers, if you trade those assets for me, it's what I bring to the table. And hey, you know what? I have the type of contract in the NBA that can always be either extended or re-upped using bird rights, in case you weren't aware of this, Rob Pelinka.
I took a lot of it to also recognize that Turner, who is a very bright guy, and somebody we've spoken to a couple times. I remember interviewing him as a rookie and being incredibly impressed at just how thoughtful of a person he is. He knows full well that if the Lakers trade their only 2 first-round picks, they basically have left between now and the end of like the next 6 presidential administrations. They almost have to re-sign him. Like, the pressure to give Turner a good deal would be enormous. I mean, I think, he talked about playing for the Lakers, talked about the experience of being able to play with LeBron. I almost said playing for LeBron. That would, I think, not necessarily inaccurate. But there's a lot about coming to Los Angeles that seemed to excite him in terms of picking your team. Like, if you got to be traded, you can't necessarily pick your team if you're Myles Turner to be traded too. So I think if in terms of exerting control, but it was really interesting to hear a player talk about the value he has, particularly, Andy, because I know this is something you latched onto, how clear he was about being a center.
Yes.
In the NBA.
Well, because let's just say the Lakers did trade those 2 picks for Myles Turner, and you would, at that point, really be obligated to re-sign him long-term, because this team, at least from what we've seen so far, does not seem to be in a position where you can count on them winning a championship, and then whatever happens from here, happens from here. You pushed in all your chips. It was a good win. It was a very good win against Denver.
Yeah, not that good.
Right. But Myles Turner noted he considers himself a center, and he feels he will be able to show his fullest impact as a player at center. Talking with Woj, quote, "I haven't even scratched the surface of my potential in this league, Woj. Honestly, I think that I don't take anything away from my experience playing the 4. I really learned the game, learned how to cut, how to play on the perimeter, how to read defenses and whatnot, and it's been good for my career. But I know I'm a natural-born 5. I display aspects of this game that a lot of 5s don't necessarily do. You're going to have to learn to do it at this state of the league. Everybody has to do everything now. I am very excited to put the league on notice and show on full display what I can do." He talked at greater length about being a 3-level scorer, and then finally ended this conversation with saying, quote, "I'm very excited to be back at my natural position and play with a team and a point guard who can put me in such great positions. The league is yet to see what I'm capable of." He was specifically talking about Tyrese Halliburton as that point guard, but he might as well have been talking about playing hypothetically with LeBron at center, allowing Anthony Davis to play the 4, hypothetically.
Right. I mean,
apropos of nothing in particular.
As I mentioned, Myles Turner is no fool. I think he is probably aware of Anthony Davis's positional preferences, and he is one of the few centers out there who you can't quote unquote play off the floor. These sort of natural, true, old-fashioned post centers that the Rudy Goberts of the world. And while I think some of that a little overdone, but there are certainly some guys that you can play off the floor just in terms of matchups and positionality and all that. Turner is not one of them. Now, he also said he needs to get better at rebounding. He talked about some other stuff that he needs to do. Like, he's not a great rebounding center. He acknowledged that in this podcast. But in terms of a guy who would be a natural fit next to Anthony Davis, who is a big, who could keep Davis at his position and also be on the floor in the fourth quarter. You can close lineups with him. He makes a lot of sense. So I want to ask you this question, Andy. Myles Turner seems amenable to the idea of being a Laker. The Lakers clearly need some help, Sunday notwithstanding. Does the interview and the 1-5 start change your thoughts about a potential Indiana deal? That's next.
I want to tell everybody about LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. And you want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. And that's why you need to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. And it's easy to lay out all the information about your business, the work environment and culture that you're looking to foster, examples of the projects that you do, and all that sort of stuff. And from there, you just add the job that you're looking to fill, plus the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. And simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. 2022 is coming to a close. It's really important to finish out this fiscal year strong. Small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number one in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
So, we note all the time that we like to use the comments from the Locked On Lakers YouTube page as part of the show. I saw this great exchange on Monday's episode on the YouTube page from Corey Humphrey. Said, "That's the team," meaning Sunday's team. I was hoping for Westbrook's energy is more valuable than Hield and Turner by a mile. Strong run coming, all winnable games ahead. And look, honestly, one of the easier games they have coming up right now, based on how they're playing, is the Clipper game. But they get Sacramento, and maybe a bit of a rusty Brandon Ingram if he's available to play Wednesday, so that maybe the Lakers have some opportunities to win a couple games here. The reply to Corey Humphrey was from Brian Benjamin, who said, "I wouldn't go that far." Oh, I just thought was funny. So that kind of, I think, is the two sides of this for Lakers fans. Most fans probably think they need some help. Some fans may be encouraged by Sunday's game. But just looking at where the Lakers are at 1-5, what's been going wrong? You're not a Buddy Hield guy. He has slipped in recent years in terms of his efficiency from three. He is shooting 45% through 7 games this year. So that is up. Turner played great in his second game back. He took a game off, should be back in the lineup Monday night for the Pacers. He can at least credibly stretch the floor a little bit. He's capable of taking 3-pointers. So you get two guys who shoot, good defense in Turner, who fits well next to AD. They're obviously not good enough right now as constructed. Do you think differently about this trade, especially knowing that Turner seems plenty happy to accept it?
Well, I would assume he would have been plenty happy to accept it to begin with, because after being linked to the Lakers for this long, I think if Myles Turner did not want to play for this team, it would have come out by now. So I never presumed anything other than Turner would have been cool with becoming a Laker, because by and large, every player is cool with becoming a Laker. It's just, I'm not saying that every single player in the league will move heaven and earth to become a Laker, but you rarely hear about players being like, "God bleep it, man." Like, you traded me to the Lakers. Like, you had this deal set up with the Magic, and then you traded me to the Lakers? Like, the F, man. Like, after everything I've given to this franchise,
heart is in Charlotte.
Yeah, this is how you do me. So I never assumed anything otherwise. Look, Russell Westbrook, the last couple games off the bench, has played well and I think has provided utility on a few fronts. And I know we talked about it a lot in Monday's show. I think his attitude in doing this has been really good. And it seems like he is genuinely wrapping his arms around this and buying into it. Even if it's not clearly his first choice, in ways that he never did with the asks from Frank Vogel. But it doesn't change the fact that two quality players, and I think very highly of Myles Turner, and certainly, while not a big Buddy Hield fan, will admit he is as good as most of the role players on this team, and he's a far better shooter than any of them. Even at his low points, he's a better shooter.
Like Buddy Hield slumping, he's down to 38, 39%. I mean, I don't think we have to tell people that leads the Lakers by like 6 miles.
Yeah, a little bit lower than that, 36, 37%, but still, like it's still better than most of what you're going to get with this team. It also, too, Myles Turner is, to me, a very tempting guy to bring in because injury concerns acknowledged. He and AD could play off each other very well on both sides of the ball for years. If you believe in either one of them staying healthy. And frankly, if you don't believe in AD staying healthy, you should be just questioning the direction of the organization, period, which I know, frankly, some people do. I know I have questioned it with AD. Mm-hmm. But if you're going to build with Anthony Davis, again, injury concerns acknowledged with Turner. Turner makes a lot of sense for him and is young enough that he could do this with AD.
So I got this. This came to us on Twitter at Cam Brothers from our friend Travis Stanford, who's been a long time at Travis HB, longtime supporter of the show and of our work. So we appreciate that. He said Russ played great last night. I mean, he certainly played much better. I mean, he had good moments, I think, on what was it, Friday, but the efficiency wasn't there. On Sunday, the efficiency was there, and he had the energy and all that. He's 2 games, he's shooting 41%, which gives you an idea of what happened Friday. But anyway, Russ played great last night, meaning Sunday, but I don't think we can depend on that. Buddy and Myles would just help this team more. Better shooting and more defense, slots, TB, Troy Brown, and DJ to better roles. Good shooting can be infectious. Damian Jones being DJ, and his role would presumably be not playing, which given how he has played so far might actually be a better role.
Again, managed to be in Sunday's game -6 in 2 minutes. That is damn near impossible.
Hard to do.
Like, you got to want it.
You
got to really set out with that as your goal.
It's the only thing he's caught this year was a bad +9.
It's funny because it's accurate.
I'm just so disappointed because I was so optimistic about what this little center rotation. I was hypnotized by like the 95% he shot in his stint as a Laker.
The most bizarre part about it to me is the guy whose passes he's least capable of catching are LeBron's. Like LeBron, I could catch a pass from LeBron. It's so perfect.
He does throw him pretty. Maybe he's just intimidated. Like he did, because he didn't catch passes from LeBron the first time around, right? LeBron was hurt.
I don't remember, honestly. DJ's like 6 games or whatever it was with the Lakers a couple of years ago, pre-Andre. He was the precursor to Andre Drummond, but I honestly don't remember. It's just bizarre that the guy who he seems to be unable to connect with is LeBron effing James.
Yeah,
that's weird.
He tends to throw them right where they need to be.
Pretty good.
Here was my reply to Travis. I don't think there's any question the deal would make them better, which, by the way, I think is something the Lakers would absolutely. The Lakers know just in a vacuum those two players are equal a better team than Russell Westbrook. I don't think that's a mystery. Anyway, it's just a matter of whether it makes them better enough to sacrifice all their remaining assets as opposed to holding out for the summertime, or presumably for something that might come on later in the year. That's still the calculus, right?
Sure.
I mean, like, it's nobody that I know or talk to thinks that trade wouldn't make the Lakers better. It's just a question if it's better enough, and that hasn't changed.
Well, how you are defining better enough is ultimately the $64 million question here. Like, just what is your baseline for better? Is it legitimately competitive? Is it avoiding the play-in altogether and just being a solid playoff team that looks to take their chances once the postseason begins? Are you talking about being vaulted to front-runner status? Because if it's the former, I do think that, health presumed, adding Buddy Hield and Myles Turner to this team can make the Lakers a solid 6 or higher. I think it could put them
even
out
with
of
the bad start.
Yeah, even with the bad start, there's still a lot of games left. So I do think so, and especially too because, as you mentioned, a couple teams like the Clippers, for example, have not gotten off to a great start, and those were one of the teams that theoretically the Lakers were going to be chasing. And if the Clippers are going to be kind of repeating the same thing over and over, where they just, give a double middle fingers to the regular season and just assume it's all going to work out once you start cranking it up in late March, we'll see how that works, much less in the playoffs.
Right.
But that puts the Lakers in a position where they're possibly not chasing as many teams. But if you're talking about they need to be front runners or it's not worth doing that, that can be your decision, I guess. But there is no deal out there. I'd say 99% certainty. There's no deal out there that's going to happen that puts you at that status.
Certainly not during the season. And then the question becomes, can you do it for next year? Does what's available to you in the offseason, being able to trade in cap space and or sign players, you still have those picks. Maybe, you're clever and you can pick up another asset along the way. I realize I'm talking about Lakers front office and clever in the same sentence. It might not be the right way to do it,
or just picking up assets. They don't do that.
As opposed to just giving them away.
They don't like assets. It's not their jam.
Like the cartels are giving away the rainbow fentanyl. Just give it away.
Yeah. Good business plan.
So it would give you a presumed starting lineup of Turner, Davis, LeBron, Buddy Hield, and pick a point guard. Probably Pat Bev to start.
Or pick a guard or a forward. I mean, it really could be whatever. LeBron is the point guard of this team.
You could do a lot of different things with that.
Right.
You could do a lot of different stuff with that, and it is a much more effective starting lineup with much more scoring. And Travis is right. It does take guys like Troy Brown and puts them in a better place. It makes you less dependent on a guy like Pat Bev to have to score. And I'd like to remind people, he has no games this season with 3 field goals. His current high is 2. So that would make a difference. One thing though that is a lot of this is contingent on in terms of making these decisions is Anthony Davis, who would presumably love to play next to Myles Turner if he gets to play, and the health thing is already an issue. As the Lakers have finished 6 games, he was clearly uncomfortable for this throughout the second half of Sunday's game, and the Lakers. They got some tough choices in terms of figuring out what to do with Davis. We'll talk about that next.
Real quick, before we get to Anthony Davis and his back, just a final point on the Lakers' decisions when it comes to figuring out whether you would roll the dice, push in all your chips this season with either Buddy Hield, Myles Turner trade or whoever versus saving it for the offseason and theoretically more optionality. That will in part come down to the options you think you have available. It's worth noting right now, who was the highest profile name attached to the Lakers for this offseason?
I believe it's Kyrie Irving.
Yeah. Doesn't look so appealing right now, does it? I mean, let me remind people, I've said for a couple of years now, the man does not want to play basketball full time. You would be absolutely insane to ever commit to that guy long term.
That criticism is even before you start getting into the tweeting of and go check out Pat. For people who are like, oh, is that movie that bad? Go check out at ESPN Pablo Torre's Twitter feed.
Yeah.
If you want to understand what is in this movie, Kyrie objects to the use of the word promoting because he says, I'm not endorsing it. But you want to say amplifying it, giving it credibility, whatever it is. You are putting it in front of your however many. I mean, he's got how many Twitter followers does he have?
Several million.
Yeah.
Several million.
So you are amplifying this to people. Go take a look at Pablo's Twitter feed, and you will see kind of what's in this movie because he's watching it for an ESPN Daily episode. It's horrifying. And so on multiple levels, no, I don't think Kyrie Irving is somebody that the Lakers ought to be committing to with a long-term contract.
Right,
so,
and just worth noting, that was the highest profile, certainly superstar-ish most player connected to the Lakers this offseason.
Right. And by the way, for those of you who are out there thinking it, 'cause somebody certainly is, but think how much cheaper he'll be because nobody else will want him. Well, why doesn't anybody else want him? Because he doesn't like Jewish people, apparently. So that's not a good way to go.
No.
You know,
the anti-Semitism discount you don't think is going to apply?
No, I don't think that's.
It's not a thing. It's not a thing.
If it is, it shouldn't be. Yes, the anti-Semitism discount is not where I think the Lakers ought to be. Being like
shopping,
super silent fist pump, like, yeah, we got him in a bargain.
Let's go out and find a homophobe. We might be able to build this roster.
Any racists that we can get at a discount? Do this right.
Who said Pelinka's not a genius?
Market inefficiencies.
Yeah, but for
what
real,
would Billy Bean say? Oh God. Anyway, all right. So Anthony Davis, he is, to his credit, trying real hard to stay on the floor because I think we've seen what happens if he doesn't. Lakers made a game of it in Minnesota. They worked their butts off. They're not even close to talented enough to stick with a decent team if Davis doesn't play. That back has been problematic in multiple games, to where you see the beginnings, first quarters. He was dominant in the first quarter on Sunday, for example, tweaked it in the second half and stayed on the floor, but wasn't the same guy. What do you do?
I mean, you have to monitor this thing as well you can. And, you obviously don't want to push AD strenuously to the point where you're going to force a prolonged absence. But at the same time, if it is possible, he's got to find ways to play through this. Like, if it's a matter of physical discomfort and pain tolerance, as opposed to possible damage being done, I'm not saying this in a don't be soft way. Like, this is difficult to do. It's excruciating. I am fully acknowledging that what AD is being asked to do is more difficult than what I would accept doing, but that's part of the job. I mean, like, unfortunately, this is the gig, and it's as much a mental thing as a physical thing, as LeBron noted recently, Russ noted recently, and even AD has not acknowledged, like, being in a mental space to deal with this is important. And he says he's in that space, and it's great. But, like, if you don't like being called street clothes, and I get it, and I don't use those type of nicknames for AD because I think it's demeaning and I think it's unfair. But the reality is he misses a lot of games. And if he wants that tag to go away, whenever it is possible to play through this stuff, he's just going to have to make a point of doing it.
It just gets really hard to. This is another argument for making the trade. Is if you're going to try to make something of this season, you need to provide Davis with more protection. You need to provide him with the ability to take a day off or 2 days off and still field a credible team. And I don't mean no disrespect for it. Like, they're just not talented enough. Like, Anthony Davis is not on the floor against a good team. You might do in that sort of fantasy draft mindset of, like, who would you take next? After LeBron, you might go 3, 4, 5, 6 guys on a good team before you get to the second Laker. Again, depending on what you think of Russell Westbrook. And you can't compete that way. And so if you think Davis is in a situation where physically he's going to need a couple games here and there, but those are games you need to win, you have to provide a way to get a better team around him. And so that's an argument for making the deal. The argument against it still remains, great. You have kind of capped yourself into 6 through 8 seed for the next 3 years. Like, and you have no,
or maybe 6 through 4, but you don't think you can do more than like a second round.
I think
type
4 is optimistic, but right. But a lot has to go right, I think, for you to get to 4. But is that better? I mean, the short-term versus long-term considerations here are really tough. And like, there's no guarantee that if you're going to turn yourself into a contender this offseason either. It's not like they have, if they wait, they have just tremendous amounts of flexibility. And so they have some cap space and they have 2 draft picks, which is kind of what they have now. It's just, almost think of it, Andy, would you spend cap space on Myles Turner to do it? Could you get Turner and still get something else with those picks? I don't know.
I mean, the difference in answering the question you just posed is you would have had the information of seeing how injured or healthy Myles Turner was this season before actually pulling the trigger on it. This is, and we've talked about this a lot since the Russell Westbrook trade, the corner that the Lakers have backed themselves into. Like they have given themselves few, if any, outs. They are the equivalent of a poker player who went all in or thought he went all in, lost, and then right before he leaves the table recognizes, I got 5 chips laying around. I didn't realize that. I can still play this game, but I don't have much to play with.
Right.
My next move has to be damn near perfect for it to work out as well as I want it to.
You're committed to whatever it is the next thing you choose to do is.
Yeah, and everybody else at the table knows it.
It's a very depressing place to leave it, but I'm afraid we're out.
But Myles Turner wants to be a Laker, it seems, so that's good.
That's exciting. All right, Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you go to see the show. Make another Locked On podcast your second listen of every day. We'll be back for Wednesday's show. Lakers taking on the Pelicans. No word yet as to whether or not Brandon Ingram will be cleared for that game. Zion Williamson is back on the floor, and quite frankly, the Pelicans are playing just fine without Ingram too. They've looked pretty good. So it's another tough game, but it is a winnable one and one at home, and we'll see what kind of momentum the Lakers can build up. Hopefully, Anthony Davis feeling a little better too after a couple days off. See you on Wednesday.